Good and Evil is an album. It was released by Tally Hall in 2011 and it is full of some really incredible songs that tell incredible stories, a couple of which have become some of Tally Hall's most popular both inside and outside of the fanbase. But there is one song that I feel truly stands out, not only because it's one of my favourite pieces of music of all time, or because nobody seems to ever talk about it, but also because it really does have some of the most intricate lyrics of anything Tally Hall have ever written, and that includes Hawaii Part 2, which I'll probably make a video on soon. But for now, strap yourselves in, spit your brains on, and get ready to have your knowledge of this song expand like a red giant. Star reference. The song opens with a person whose life is about to end, as any good song does. To leave from this tale means to leave from life, and also to leave from good and evil, as this is the last song of the album. But this doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to die, and our main character seems to know that he isn't, as he prepares to exist by the living and dead, expressing that while he doesn't think he's going to truly die, he also doesn't think he's going to come out of this entirely alive. He will simply just exist. Too slow or too kind is him thinking that death is either too slow, which is why he hasn't died yet, or too kind, suggesting that maybe he's not even going to properly die. No matter the case, this person is being very skeptical of the situation that he has found himself in. But at the end of the day, whether or not he truly dies, he knows he cannot live. So he continues through Mirrors Left Broken, a sign of bad luck, and loses all of his senses to the absurd. In the first chorus, our main character starts to find out which one of his theories from earlier was true. We also find out that the first verse took place in the past tense to the character, as the chorus is the part where we are. Meaning as of current, we are in the chorus. Who we is, we don't quite know yet. And as for which theory was true, it was death being too kind. For whatever reason, this human is not being allowed to move on to the next stage of death. He's instead stuck in a permanent state of purgatory, trapped in active depart. He should be departing to the afterlife, but instead he's just been trapped. This next line, in the fate of the stars, is most likely a link to Spring and the Storm's All You See and You and Me became from a star. Now this is scientifically accurate, as it's how every element in the universe originated, but in terms of fate of the stars, the idea of everything coming from a star is used to suggest that everything is also decided by the stars as if they were gods. A prominent idea in many monotheistic religions is that God gave life, so therefore God and God only has the absolute right to take it away at any time. And the stars created everything, including this human. So therefore the stars decide whether or not the human lives or dies, and the human can't do anything about it. After all, it's his fate literally written in the stars. The next lines, pumping hard but impressed, are a lovely juxtaposition between man and machine, and is also really hard to find a meaning for. But don't worry, I'm pretty sure I found one. It's possible that this line is our main character trying to break free. It seems to have very little semantic relevance to the rest of the song, it's split across two lines, and it could also be seen as a reference to and, through the idea of contradictions. All of these things disobey the structure of the song thus far, potentially representing our character's attempt at breaking out and escaping, and perhaps it would have been successful if it wasn't for the next line. Mind control, mind restarts. This line solidifies the idea of stars being gods, as they control and restart the mind of our human. In the second verse, our main character has been sent back to square one. It again opens with to leave from, just like the first line, showing that his mind has been reset and he's forgotten that he already tried to leave from. He is back where the song started, but he doesn't remember it. So yet again, he immediately wants to leave the present and move on to the afterlife. But the stars laugh because silence is never around. Our main character has been constantly struggling to get out of the loop that he doesn't even know he's in, without a second of silence in between attempts. Kind of like when a fly repeatedly hits its head against a window. And the stars find this pretty funny. They laugh at our poor human. Ignored and forgotten, the past may continue to breathe represents the idea that if history is forgotten, then it is doomed to repeat itself. And funnily enough, now that our main character's memory has been wiped and reset, history is probably going to repeat itself, and he's probably going to try and escape again. Feared not arrest by this desolate friend, whose patience revealed what intent comes to send, is talking about the stars again. But I think that it's actually just one star this time, in particular the star that our human came from. This star is not at all worried by our desolate friend's attempt to escape, because patience has revealed his intent. The star knows that our human is going to try it again because he's forgotten that he's already tried and failed. Probably more than once. But then we get hit by a bit more of a serious line. With a stare at a hole in the world comes a lust to be high. Now, to nobody's surprise, this is our main character thinking about escaping again, with a lust to be high meaning he wants to ascend to the afterlife. But what makes him want to ascend is a hole in the world, so what is that? Well, before I go further, I need to say something, and that is that if you aren't following along with what I've said so far, watch it again until you do. I am going to give a short recap, but for this next bit, you have to understand what I've explained up until this point. Are you ready? Okay, our main character has had his memory wiped since the first verse, and since then things have changed. At the start, he was very skeptical of what was going to happen, continuing through the bad omen of broken mirrors and losing all of his senses just because he knew his life had to end. But now things are different. He's still trying to escape, but it's for the complete opposite reason. Now he's trying to escape because he needs to know what comes next. His memory may have been wiped, but he's still the same person, and after being so close to the stars in the first chorus, he still feels that connection. And this feeling is tugging at him to find out what's after. He stares at a hole in the world, and suddenly what he sees gives him that feeling. And I can tell you exactly what he's looking at. It's this. This image of the sun peeking through the clouds is commonly regarded by religious people to be the light of God or heaven leaking into our world, which is also why heaven is almost always depicted as being above the clouds, or in this case above the dark-nested clouds. It's this sight that makes many feel a connection to God and heaven, and our character is feeling the exact same connection, except it's not for God per se. It's for a star, and not just any star, but the star that created him, the star that watches him, controls him, and decides his fate, the star that birthed him, the star that he feels a connection with, and the star that feels a connection to him in return. And upon this sight, the two are physically connected as they finally meet. This star is the sun, and the human is the sun's son. The sun's son. If you didn't know, the opening line of "and" is love of the sun with an asterisk over the vowel, to leave up to interpretation whether it's about the star or the relation. But Fate of the Stars tells us that it's both. In this song, the U-Sun represents gods, and the human represents the O-Sun of gods. Whatever the case, I am fairly certain that the love of the sun at the start of "and" is talking about the two characters of Fate of the Stars, which is pretty fucking cool if you ask me. But despite all of this, the sun decides that our humans still can't escape, so in chorus 2 his mind is yet again reset. But as we just observed in the second verse, part of our main character was still there after his mind was wiped, and that connection to the sun stayed after he lost his memory, so why would this time be any different? Step onto the Ferris wheel round for day and night details our human's unending loop of attempting to move onto the afterlife. And lost in what's forevermore may well be the reason that the sun doesn't want our human to see past his life on Earth. Maybe forevermore is just too much for him. We've already seen that he's put up a very big fight to try and see what's next. Our protagonist is exactly that, a protagonist. He has shown that he has the power and ambition to oppose the will of the stars, maybe not fully successfully, but enough to make the sun have to physically intervene. And maybe our main character, in his unquenchable thirst for knowledge, would destroy himself in the forevermore. And the sun knows this. That's why the sun is gatekeeping the afterlife. It knows that there are some things he is just never meant to know. Then all of a sudden the link between "and" begins to grow even stronger. Give and take and sleep and wake and pray for day and night to come, and it quite frankly doesn't matter what those words mean, that's not important. What's important is the ampersands between them, it's "and." Again we see there's certainty in what we feel and what we've heard. Our main character has been reset again, no surprise there, but is driven by what he knows and feels from the time before, even if he can't remember it. And he yet again comes in contact with the sun, which gives certainty to that feeling. But of course after meeting the sun, he is just reset to live it again. And finally, the last line of the song, the album, and all of Tally Hall up until this date. Again, we see there's certainty and expectations all the same. This line isn't only talking about Fate of the Stars, but the entirety of good and evil, by essentially saying that all these expectations don't matter at all. We are being shown that our human's expectations of the afterlife mean nothing because he's not in control and can't decide whether or not he goes there. And the sun is seeing the certainty of its expectations, being the human trying to escape, unfold before it over and over and over again without changing. The sun's expectations also don't matter because what needs to happen will happen. Even though the sun controls the fate of our human, being death, it can't control what the human feels. And these two factors together lead to the never-ending loop that the two characters have found themselves in. Because at the end of the day, it's all the same and it always will be. That is the Fate of the Stars. Tally ball.